Welcome to the KIX EAP Podcast, your monthly podcast with important leaders in education from Eastern Europe, Middle East and North Africa, Central Asia, and the Asia Pacific. I'm your host, Ryan Allen, assistant professor at Soka University of America here in Orange County, California. My own background is in international and comparative education. Let's start the show. Today, our guest is Tamader Al-Tarifi Awad Al-Karim. She was a longtime teacher in Sudan who became the federal minister of education. In the interview, we go through her story and how she got to that position, and it's quite fascinating. Just a heads up, Dr. Akram Abbas, the national KIX coordinator in Sudan, helped us translate this interview, and local translator Joanne Jamis provided the dubbing. So that's the voice you'll be hearing as you listen. It really is an incredible story, so let's jump to it. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited for this interview. As I look through your resume, I see that you've long been interested in education. I see you majored in education since your BA. Can you maybe talk about how you became interested in education and teaching?
First, allow me to thank you for selecting me to talk about education in Sudan. Thanks a lot for GPE and thanks a lot for KIX staff. I am Tamader Al-Tarifi Awad Al-Karim. I graduated from the education faculty and I deliberately chose education to work in the teaching field. I graduated from the faculty, then I started working as a teacher in public schools. I taught secondary classes, then I was appointed at Al Jazeera State and I worked for many schools in that state, rural schools. I used to live with the girls enrolled in boarding schools. Back then, in 1989, boarding schools for secondary students were common, and I have lived with the female students. That helped me get closer to students and solve their different problems. This enriched my teaching experience, especially that those times were the beginnings, and I acquired experience in teaching and dealing with different students. That helped the students as well to succeed, especially that we were continuously communicating with them. In the different schools where I worked, we formed teams and helped schools move forward. We were working together as one teaching team. I started by teaching sciences, i.e. chemistry and mathematics and biology at the same time for a long period of time. Then I moved to Al Khartoum State. There I worked in different schools, in governmental and non-governmental schools, and the longest period was in governmental schools. In Al Khartoum, I taught mathematics only. The situation of teachers in Khartoum was different from the other states. We, as teachers, were always meeting to discuss education issues and teachers' problems. And in 2009, we had the opportunity to create a committee, and I was among the first to participate in the teachers' committee that was initially created to solve teaching problems in Sudan and to respond to the teachers' requests and defend teachers' and students' rights and improve the education in general. The Teachers Committee was among the parties that created the Professionals Association, an association that led the 2018 revolution. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Wow, that's wonderful. You already kind of answered my second question, so I'm actually just really fascinated to hear more about your role in the revolution and maybe why it was kind of important for a teacher to have perspective there.
First, the Teachers Committee created itself the Professionals Association, and we were already asking to secure teachers' rights and to improve education. And we have come to realize that this cannot happen unless there is a total change. Concerning my role in the committee, I was the head of the Teachers' Commission in Al Khartoum state. Before the revolution, I was advocating for teachers' rights, and we were all convinced that a drastic change is needed at the governmental level and in general. As a result, I was jailed for a month, a full month, before the revolution of 2018. So I was imprisoned for a long period of time, almost a full month. Everybody knew that we were always deploying efforts to bring stakeholders together and ask for the change needed in the country. As a result, most of the Teachers' Committee members, especially those active at the political level, were arrested, and I was among those arrested. Then we, as women, were set free on the International Women's Day, but the rest of teachers were only liberated after the coup. So they were only liberated after the coup. I think that teachers played a major role in the December Revolution, since the formation of the Professionals Association and leading the revolution. Teachers played a big role in creating the change we are now witnessing. Needless to say that the teacher should play a major role in his society. This is how the teaching profession should be. The teacher should play a role in the society around him or her.
Wow, that's incredible and really inspiring to hear sort of teachers banding together and really being the leaders of a society and a movement. That's wonderful. I guess if we could, it sounds like the next part of the story is you becoming the Undersecretary of the Federal Ministry of Education and then Federal Minister of Education. So can you maybe talk a little bit about changing from a teacher and moving into a government role? What were some of the challenges that sort of were in the way of improvement or that you saw for Sudan, and what did you try to accomplish? What were some of the things that you were trying to accomplish in that role?
In 2019, I was appointed Undersecretary of the Ministry of Education. It was a big move for me, from being a teacher to being appointed in the federal ministry, knowing that I was coming from the education field and knowing exactly what the situation of education was. The challenges were many, but I accepted the challenges, and I had a lot of hope that we can change the situation of education and improve the quality of education in Sudan. The challenges were too many, and I knew that the financial situation of the teacher, the professional training, the school environment in Sudan, curriculums in Sudan that were not updated nor improved for too long, the teachings methods adopted in Sudan that were still not up to the modern methods used in other countries. So we were still not applying those modern methods. I was thinking about all this: health at school, nutrition at school. I was very worried about all this since I entered the ministry. Unfortunately, after starting my work at the ministry, we have faced the biggest challenges of all, which was the COVID pandemic. The first step taken back then was to close schools for months in Sudan, and I was in real pain because our children weren't learning, while children from around the globe embraced e-learning and remote learning. We asked for the help of organizations such as GPE, and we established a plan to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. That was the first thing we did at the ministry. And the part of the plan was to at least secure education channels covering most of the Sudanese students, if not all. The plan was approved and the channels were established and endorsed. We were supposed to launch the process and expecting the channels to be operational within days so we can help a little bit the students and launch remote learning during the periods of crisis and catastrophes. But unfortunately, up till now, the channels are still not operational. The challenges were too many. The first one was that the official baccalaureate exam should have taken place even during COVID. The situation was very difficult and exams were rescheduled for October. The fall season was tough with all the natural catastrophes and schools were impacted, but I insisted on holding the official exams as scheduled, especially that the students suffered a lot because of the continuous rescheduling due to COVID and the revolution. It was postponed twice. People were asking to postpone again because of the catastrophes, but I insisted on the need to hold the exams on time despite the catastrophes and not to change their date. Despite the catastrophes, despite the rain and the floods. Here again, we resorted to the assistance of organizations and to the Ministry of Finance so it can increase the budget dedicated to the official exam and the budget dedicated to respond to the COVID crisis and the fall season repercussions. We succeeded in holding exams on time, all that with the support of the organizations and through asking the Ministry of Finance to increase the budget dedicated to the exams and education in general. Exams were held on time. It was the very first challenge lifted in the ministry, and thank God the exams were held successfully. I can go through many points. The first thing we did was to resort to the Ministry of Finance so it can increase the education budget. That was a must. And it was very important as well to create a network with the other federal ministries of education. Networking was a must as well as the participation of all stakeholders. In the beginning, we thought about organizing many conferences, and many were held at the beginning of the year, among which the International Conference for Education, that was the first conference held and organized with the support of the World Bank. It covered many topics such as the curriculum and came out with several recommendations. Then we have organized a second conference entitled December Revolution for Education, and I presided the organizing committee of the first and the second conference, during which all federal ministries of education participated and many recommendations were given during the second conference. In addition, many meetings were organized with the ministers of the different federal ministries of education in order to assess education and find the means to improve education in Sudan. The meetings led to many recommendations. We were unable to work on all recommendations, and I have formed a committee to follow up on all these conferences so we can issue at the ministry level clear policies.
Right. It sounds like when you were in charge, there was just unprecedented issues. Who could have foreseen COVID? Who could have foreseen a flood and a natural disaster happening across the country? But I am glad to hear that you were able to get some things accomplished, especially maybe some of those digital communication tools. So that's at least wonderful to hear. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about the international organizations that you worked with. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about your experience working with them? And in particular, did you ever feel there was maybe a mismatch in vision or maybe a disagreement with an international organization?
We consider organizations our first partners in education, and we do agree with them around many topics. With the organizations, we established a strategy to train the teachers with the assistance of UNICEF. we formed a committee for e-learning through the assistance of the organizations currently working in Sudan. We were able, through the help of organizations, to update the curriculum of primary education, i.e. establish an electronic curriculum for grade 1 till grade 3 so that all students can benefit from. We established as well a learning platform. We finished the preparation of the platform and launched it before leaving the ministry. We established a strategic plan to train all teachers of all grades with the assistance of organizations. We have established a plan to train the intermediate school teachers. We have changed, among other things, during the last 2 years, the learning scale from 8 to 3 years to the previous system, i.e. 6-3-3. So we have reinstalled the intermediate stage again. We had to issue, of course, a new curriculum for the intermediate classes, and hence training teachers was a need. And again, with the support of organizations, we have established a plan to train the intermediate school teachers on the new curriculum. The organizations helped us as well to secure the school meal, even if not covering all Sudan, with the support of WFP, right, that was working in some states and providing students with school meals. We have worked with the education minister and the Ministry of Finance on a budget including the school meal. The current year budget should have included the school meal for all primary school students. The Ministry of Finance was going to provide a part of the said budget and WFP another part, knowing that it was providing a school meal in some of the states. Organizations working in Sudan aim at developing education in the country, and we still believe that further coordination is needed. We already established a committee to coordinate the work of organizations in Sudan under the federal ministry, and that is very important. I am talking about the National Group for Education, yes, the National Group for Education that encompassed all organizations. For the first time, all organizations were working under the federal ministry in order to avoid overlapping in some regions and state. We have benefited from the GPE grant to support primary schools in each and every state. The amount of the grant was around $2 per student for all primary schools students all over Sudan. That helped us a lot securing free education and working on achieving SDG 4. All that happened thanks to the support and assistance of organizations, their trainings and grants, so we can decrease, for instance, the fees of textbooks printing. And I hope that all organizations will help us print textbooks. I hope that we will receive support for the printing house of the federal ministry. We have a printing house, but it is unfortunately quite old and can't secure swift printing of books. During my last days at the ministry, I launched an MOU with some stakeholders aiming at developing the ministry's printing house so we can receive assistance for the printing of textbooks. After the MOU, the aim was to secure the funding to reshuffle the printing house. So we hope that this year the organizations will help us develop our own printing house so we don't resort each and every year to print the primary school textbooks for grade 1 till grade 3 through a grant from GPE. Though we thank GPE a lot for this grant, but we hope that the assistance will target developing the printing house so we can benefit more and cover more complicated tasks. Book printing should be a simple task if we develop the printing house. I call upon all organizations affiliated to GPE and international organizations to support the Federal Ministry in developing the printing house in Wazana. Concerning curricula didn't change. We developed the curricula of the intermediate school. A conference was supposed to be held in December to present the amendments to the Sudanese curricula, and we were keen on having, with the assistance of GPE, experts to improve our curricula and the general framework of curricula in Sudan. That was supposed to be in December, but we left the ministry in October without being able to achieve all that.
Well, that sounds like most of the relationships went really well. So that's actually good news to hear. We're kind of coming to the end of the interview, and it's been fascinating so far. And I'm just wondering if you have, a final word for our audience around the world who might be listening, maybe especially people around the world who are teachers and educators and thinking about, becoming political leaders or working for the government. Can you maybe give a final word to them out there?
I would like to thank you for this interview, and I would like to thank all the audience listening to us. I believe that the teacher should be the real leader of change all over the world. The teacher is the one who accompanies a child since the beginning, from early childhood education up till secondary school and higher education. Hence, the teacher should be the leader of change at all levels: social, economical, and even at the political level. A good and excellent teacher should be a leader in his school, a leader in his community, a leader in his country. He or she is the one who can lead the real change in society in general at the different levels, especially the levels where change is required. That's why a teacher should be well trained, well educated, and should have a great knowledge in all fields, and not only in his field of academic expertise. A teacher should be aware and knowledgeable of all social, economical, and political issues. A teacher should be a real leader. I would like to thank all organizations supporting education in Sudan. The important thing, regardless if we are present or not, is that education evolves, and we feel very sorry for the situation of education in Sudan. We see how education is evolving in other countries and moving forward. And for a teacher to be a real leader in Sudan, he or she should be well trained. And that's why we call upon all organizations to support education in Sudan so we can reach the level of other countries in terms of education.
Wow, that's a great message to end on. Thank you for being my guest on the show. Thank you, Dr. Abbas, for translating as well. And we'll see you next time. And this concludes our KIX EAP podcast, which is released every first Wednesday of the month. Of course, the opinions expressed on the KIX EAP podcast are solely those of the host and the guest. The KIX EAP podcast is made possible by KIX, which stands for Knowledge and Innovation Exchange. KIX is an initiative of the Global Partnership for Education. Globally, KIX is administered by the International Development Research Center in Canada. NORAG in Geneva hosts one of the 4 regional hubs of KIX. Find us on the NORAG or GPE KIX websites. You can subscribe to the KIX EAP podcast, newsletter, and webinar series, and also learn about KIX global or regional projects. Additionally, you can subscribe directly on Spotify or SoundCloud to receive notifications of the new monthly podcast. Thanks for listening.